The non-Sikh writers of the early 18th century took much greater notice of Banda Singh Bahadur than that of Guru Gobind Singh. This may safely be attributed to the political activities of Banda Singh and his success in holding power for some time. When Wazir Khan, the governor of Sirhind, sent commanders with troops against the Khalsa in the Jalandhar region, his commanders were defeated. The Khalsa were hostile to Wazir Khan, because he had killed the young sons of their guru. Disorders spread in his territories and he was obliged to stay at Sirhind. A later report refers to the defeat and death of Wazir Khan on May 24, 1710. The Khalsa established their authority in Sirhind, and forbade the killing of animals. Muhammad Qasim, the earliest writer to give detail of Banda Singh's activities, mentions Wazir Khan's minister, Sach Anand, as a special target of the Sikhs, because of his earlier acts of cruelty to the young sons of Guru Gobind Singh. The city of Sirhind was destroyed. Some people were compelled to accept the Sikh faith. None was allowed to retain arms, horses, and other goods of chiefship. Baz Singh was appointed as the new governor of Sirhind. All territory from the river Sutlej up to Karnal passed under the government and control of Banda Singh Bahadur. In due course, Lahore was also threatened, but the combined force of the Mughal and Afghan armies forced them to retreat. The army of Islam returned victorious to Lahore. Some of its soldiers were vile and mean enough to commit shameful acts upon the Hindus of the city. Karfi Khan, another contemporary historian, writes, the Khatris of the Punjab were colluding with Banda, and the Jats were supporting him. The majority of Banda's followers were foot soldiers. They did not hesitate to die in battle. Their spirit of sacrifice, and their achievement through it, was attributed by the common people to magic and sorcery. Muhammad Shafi writes, after the conquest of Sirhind, Banda ordered that both Hindus and Muslims who became enrolled as Sikhs should take their meals together, to obviate the distinction of the lowly and the well-born. Consequently, a pauper was made equal to a prince. The administrators appointed by him belonged to lowly positions, including that of a sweeper or a cobbler. Eventually, Banda was besieged in the fort of Gurdaspur. Muhammad Qasim was an eyewitness to the sorties of the besieged. The Mughal commanders were so struck with fear, that they prayed that Banda should take to flight, so that their prestige was saved without risking their lives. The siege continued for 3 months or 4 months, during which time more reinforcements were sent. The enclosure containing the Sikhs was immediately surrounded and blockaded, and the besiegers kept so watchful a guard, that not a blade of grass, nor a grain of corn, could find its way in. Occasionally, Abdus Samad Khan, and his son Zakariya Khan, at the head of several thousand troopers of their own nation and the forces of their allies, attempted to storm the Sikh position, but their attempts were defeated by comparatively a handful of Sikhs, who showed the greatest activity in their defense. Muhammad Qasim, who was at this time present in these operations, writes, the brave and daring deeds of the infernal Sikhs were wonderful. Twice or thrice every day, some 40 or 50 of the black-faced Sikhs came out of their enclosure to gather grass for their cattle, and when the combined forces of the imperialists went to oppose them, they made an end of the Mughals with their arrows, muskets and small swords, and disappeared. Such was the terror of the Sikhs and the fear of the sorceries of the Sikh chief, that the commanders of this army prayed that God might so ordain things, that Banda Singh should seek his safety in his flight from the fortress. Unquote. Abdus Samad Khan soon perceived that no less than 30,000 men would be required to prevent escape of the besieged. The reinforcements brought by Qamar ud-Din were therefore very welcome. Also, as the Sikhs were not strict observers of caste, they slaughtered oxen and other animals, and not having any firewood, ate the flesh raw. Many died of dysentery and privation. When all the grass was gone, they gathered leaves from trees. When these were consumed, they stripped the bark and broke off the small shoots, dried them, ground them and used them instead of flour, thus keeping the body and soul together. They also collected the bones of animals and used them in the same way. Muhammad Qasim asserts that they saw a few of them cutting flesh from their own thighs, roasting it, and eating it. In spite of all this, the infernal Sikh chief and his men, writes Kamwar Khan, withstood all the military force that the great Mughal Empire could muster against them for 8 long months. After a further siege of over 2 months, which made Banda's position utterly hopeless, he offered to surrender on the promise of safety. About 200 men came out with him and they were placed under custody. Zakaria Khan escorted the prisoners to Delhi, where they were executed. Banda Bahadur and his 5-year-old son were the last to be executed after much torture on June 20, 1716. Mirza Muhammad, an eyewitness to some of the executions, writes, "There was no sign of humility and submission on the faces of the Sikhs. Most of them kept singing and reciting melodious verses. They attributed their defeat to fate, and had no fear of death. In a week's time all the Sikhs were beheaded in batches of 100. Banda himself was hacked to death along with his young son and 20 prominent devoted Sikhs." Karfi Khan adds, "During the executions, the mother of one youth pleaded his innocence, and the emperor ordered his release. But her son cried out that she was telling a lie, and that he should be executed so that he may join his companions." The evidence of non-Sikh sources on the resurgence of the Khalsa, like their evidence on Banda Singh Bahadur, is extremely valuable. After Banda Singh, the persecution of Sikhs continued. Bhai Kesar Singh Chibber, a contemporary historian, mentions the martyrdom of the head caretaker of the Hari Mandar Sahib, Bhai Mani Singh, who was of Kamboj lineage, and was martyred by being cut limb from limb in Lahore. According to Thomas Khan, the new governor, Mir Manu, made special preparations to suppress the Sikhs, and offered incentives to those who might join his plan of suppression and persecution. This piece of evidence carries the implication that the Sikhs had become a serious menace by the time Mir Manu took over the governorship of Lahore. While Mir Manu was at Batala, news was received that the Sikhs were creating trouble. He sent Syed Jamal Uddin Khan, and Bakshi Ghazi Beg Khan, against them. The Sikhs were dispersed. After some time, Mir Manu himself reached out of Lahore to a distance of 7 kos, and encamped near village Tikapur, situated on the bank of Ravi. He halted there for a long time, and sent out Mughal troops under Khwaja Mirza in every direction, to suppress the Sikhs. Khwaja Mirza at the head of his troops rode out 20 or sometimes 30 kos. Wherever he got a clue of the whereabout of the Sikhs, he suddenly fell upon them and slew them. The persons who brought Sikhs alive or their heads, or their horses, received awards. Every Mughal who lost his own horse in the battle was provided with another of a better quality at the expense of the government. The Sikhs who were captured alive were beaten with wooden mallets and killed. At times, Adina Beg Khan sent 40 to 50 captured Sikhs from the Jalandhar district. They were as a rule killed with the strokes of wooden hammers. How Mir Manu died while fighting against the Sikhs in 1753 has been graphically described by Thomas Khan. Minute details about the persecution of Sikhs are available. One day at his place Tikapur in the month of Muharram, he mounted a horse and went out for a hunt. Before proceeding, he sent Khwaja Mirza Khan and some other chiefs to proceed against the Sikhs. By this time Khwaja Mirza Khan had brought the heads of a few Sikhs. Mir Manu gave rewards to the soldiers, who had brought in the heads. Due to exertion he became speechless and fainted. He was put in a palanquin and brought to the camp. Physicians came to attend upon him. They tried various remedies but of no use. At midnight, Mir Manu passed away. The persecution of the Sikhs continued even after the death of Mir Manu. Thomas Khan joined the army to fight against the Sikhs. He writes, Qasim Khan, then encamped at a distance of 2 kos from Lahore. The same day we had to fight against the Sikhs. Qasim Khan was advised to forestall the Sikhs and fall upon them boldly, so that they could be destroyed. In the evening, he returned to his tents. The Sikhs followed him fighting all the way up to his tents, and then dispersed. Next day, Qasim Khan left the road to Patti, and moving towards a village 12 kos away, camped there. On the plea that the people had sided with the Sikhs, he imprisoned them. He camped there for a month. He did not release women and children who were taken captives. The Sikhs used to fight with him every day and depart. In 1757, the Afghans invaded India. Jihan Khan, the Afghan commander, fought a pitched battle with the Sikhs near Amritsar. Their harshness obliged him to retire to some secret place. The troops returned empty-handed. From that moment, says Thomas, the shape of administration, which in that country had been in good order, was disrupted, and from every side tumult and rebellion began to be raised by the Sikhs. Wherever the Afghan army went, it came back defeated, till things came to such a pass, that the environs of the city of Lahore were affected. Every night in bodies of 1,000, the Sikhs attacked the city and sacked the quarters outside the city wall. No one came out of the city to disperse or stop them. Timur Shah, son of Ahmad Shah Abdali, provides a very important Persian source. It gives us contemporary Afghan evidence about the Sikh way of life. He begins his Hakikat with the observation that Nanak Shah introduced a system which was hitherto unknown among the Hindu nation. In his religion, there is very little prejudice against Muslims, nay, they have practically no prejudice against any nation. They welcome both friend and foe, alike. He has vividly described the political events, as well as the belief of the Sikhs in the efficacy of the water of the Sarovar, of Darbar Sahib. After a year, Ahmad Shah came again, and they gave way and scattered themselves, here and there. Ahmad Shah destroyed Amritsar, where there are many deep tanks, several buildings, and a temple of the Sikhs. It is common among the Sikhs, to assemble at Amritsar, and take their bath. When a Sikh is wounded in battle, he is kept in a home erected by the side of the tank, and the water of the tank is rubbed on the wound instead of medicine. Thomas Khan estimated that 25,000 Sikhs were slain in what is known as the Great Carnage in Sikh sources. Jang Nama is an eyewitness account of Ahmed Shah's invasion of 1764, of which our knowledge is extremely poor otherwise. The eyewitness was Nur Muhammad. We present a liberal translation of Qazi Nur Muhammad's narration which elucidates the high conduct of Sikhs, their mode of fighting, their faith, and courage. Do not call these Sikh dogs, because they are lions and are courageous like lions in the battlefield. How can a hero, who roars like a lion, be called a dog? Moreover, like lions they spread terror in the field of battle. If you wish to learn the art of war, come face to face with them in the battlefield. They will demonstrate it to you in such a way, that one and all will shower praise on them. If you wish to learn the science of war, O swordsmen, learn from them. They advance at the enemy boldly and come back safely after action. Understand, Singh is their title, a form of address for them. It is not justice to call them dogs. If you do not know the Hindustani language, then understand that the word Singh means a lion. Truly, they are lions in battle, and at times of peace, they surpass Hartim in generosity. When they take the Indian sword in their hands, they traverse the country from Hind to Sindh. None can stand against them in battle, howsoever strong he may be. When they handle the spear, they shatter the ranks of the enemy. When they raise the heads of their spears towards the sky, they would pierce even through the Caucasus. When they adjust the strings of the bows, place in them the enemy-killing arrows and pull the strings to their ears, the body of the enemy begins to shiver with fear. When their battle axes fall upon the armor of their opponents, their armor becomes their coffin. The body of every one of them is like a piece of rock, and in physical grandeur every one of them is more than 50 men. It is said that Bahram Ghor killed wild asses and lions. But if he were to come face to face with them, even he would bow before them. Besides usual arms, they take their guns in hand and come into the field of action, jumping and roaring like lions, and raise slogans. They tear asunder the chests of many and shed blood of several of their enemy in the dust. You say that the musket is a weapon of ancient times. It appears to be a creation of these dogs rather than Socrates. Who else than these dogs can be adept in the use of muskets? They do not bother even if there are innumerable muskets. To the right and the left, in front, and towards the back, they go on operating hundreds of muskets angrily and regularly. If you do not believe in what I say, you may inquire of the brave swordsmen who would tell you more than myself, and would praise them for their fighting. This bears witness to my statement that they faced 30,000 heroes in the battlefield. If their armies take to flight, it is a war tactic of theirs. They resort to this deception, in order to make the angry army grow bold and run in their pursuit. When they find them separated from the main body and away from help and reinforcement, they at once turn back and fight more ferociously. They set fire even to water. Did you not see that while fighting the Pathans, they took to flight, which was deceptive? O valiant fighter, do justice to their act of war. One of their armies invaded Multan and put the city to plunder and devastation, and killed many of its inhabitants, and carried away an immense booty. I am not sufficiently strong in mind to express what the dogs did there. But as God willed it, each of us has to submit to his will. Besides their fighting, listen to one more thing in which they excel all other warriors. They never kill a coward who is running away from the battlefield. They do not rob a woman of her wealth or ornaments, whether she is rich or a servant. There is no adultery among these dogs, nor are they mischievous people. A woman, whether young or old, they call a buri. The word buri means in Indian language, an old lady. There is no thief amongst these dogs, nor is there amongst them any mean people. They do not keep company with adulterers and house thieves, though all their acts may not be commendable. If you are not acquainted with their religion, I tell you that the Sikhs are the disciples of the Guru. That glorious Guru lived at Chakamritsar. The ways and manners of these people were laid down by Nanak, who showed these Sikhs a separate path. He was succeeded by Guru Gobind Singh, from whom they received the title of Singh. They are not part of the Hindus, who have a separate religion of their own. Now that you have familiarized yourself with the behavior of the Sikhs, you may also know something about their country. They have divided the Punjab amongst themselves, and have bestowed it upon every young and old. How Baba Gurbaksh Singh fought against the forces of Ahmad Shah Abdali to defend the Akal Takht has been graphically described by Qazi Nur Muhammad in Jangnama. When the Shah arrived at the Chowk, there was not a single infidel to be seen there, but a few of them had remained in an enclosure so that they might spill their own blood. And they sacrificed their lives for the Guru. When they saw the renowned king and the army of Islam, they came out of their enclosures. They were only 30 in number, but they have not a grain of fear about them. They had neither the fear of slaughter nor the dread of death. Thus, they grappled with the Ghazis, and in this grappling, they spilt their own blood. All were killed. Unquote. Readers might be familiar with the word picture of Sikh soldiers, painted by Qazi Nur Muhammad in 1764. 8 decades later, the British tested their mettle against the Sikh soldiers in 2 Anglo-Sikh wars. They became victorious through treachery of the Brahmin Sikh commanders, but realized that the Sikh soldier was not only much superior in fighting skill, but also more humane in character, a true Sant Sipahi. Major G. Smith, overwhelmed by the courage of a Sikh soldier, describes it thus in an anecdote. A great deal has been said of the gallant bearing of Moro, when he lost both legs at the Battle of Dresden, where he was engaged with the Allied powers against France, but I doubt much if the general bore his misfortune with the stolid courage of a Sikh sergeant, who had both his legs taken off by a round shot at the Battle of Aliwal. I conversed with him for about 10 minutes, during which not a muscle of his countenance indicated that he was in pain, and he spoke out boldly, like a Spartan, smiling at the idea when I told him one of our surgeons would save his life, and remarking, he had no wish to live without his legs. He then asked for water, and after washing his face, gave a silver ring with a ruby in it to the water carrier, and requested some of the men of H.M., the 31st, who were standing by, to put an end to him with their bayonets. He was a fine, handsome-looking man, between 50 and 60 years of age, with a grey beard covering his chest. Unquote. Later, when Sikhs organized the Central Shrine Management Committee, to take away the management of all important Sikh shrines from corrupt priests, they displayed tremendous courage yet again. In August 1922, Sikhs who continued the old practice of hewing wood from Guru Ka Bagh, for the daily requirements of the community kitchen, were stopped by the police. Those who came to cut firewood from Guru Ka Bagh were beaten up in a merciless manner, until they lay senseless on the ground. They were dragged about by their hair and left contemptuously off, when the police thought they had been served well enough. The Sikhs suffered all this stoically, and went in larger numbers day by day to submit themselves to the beating. From August 31st, the number was raised to 100. Every day, a batch of 100 volunteers would start from the Akal Takht, pledging to suffer their fate silently. The police would stop them on the way and smite them with heavy brass-bound sticks and rifle butts. They beat the non-resisting Sikhs on the heads, backs, and other delicate parts of their bodies. They would beat them mercilessly, pulling them by their hair, making indiscriminate baton charges, breaking their bones, and inflicting grievous wounds on them. The belaboring continued until the batch lay prostrate to a man. With the name of God on their lips, the Sikhs would fall down unconscious, but they would neither defend themselves nor retaliate. Dozens received injuries to their testicles and had problems urinating. While the volunteers were passively receiving blows from the police, the English superintendent sportively ran his horse over them and back. Government medical facilities barred entrance to the wounded, forcing Sikhs to treat themselves in the field. Amputations of crushed limbs were conducted in the open. The Sikhs displayed unique powers of self-control and resolution, and bore the bodily torment in a spirit of complete resignation. According to eyewitnesses, none of them winced or raised his hand. Dalip Singh Sand writes. In one instance, the policeman's blow struck an Akali with such violence, that one of his eyeballs dropped out. His eye was bleeding profusely, but still he walked forward towards his goal, until he was knocked down the second time and fell on the ground unconscious. While the Guru Ka Bagh Morcha was going on, an incident occurred at Puncha Sahib, in which several Sikh protesters were run over by a government train. Bhai Karam Singh Ji and Bhai Partarp Singh Ji were the first two Singhs that were crushed under the wheels of the train. Others sitting at the front of the track also sustained injuries. Gyani Bhajan Singh, a very good Sikh writer, himself went to Bibi Harnam Kaur, the wife of Shahid Bhai Partarp Singh, and interviewed her on what exactly happened at Puncha Sahib railway station. Following is the translation of Gyani Bhajan Singh Ji's interview with Bibi Harnam Kaur Ji. Gyani Bhajan Singh asked, Mataji, could you please tell us something about the Puncha Sahib incident? I have specially come to see you to get first-hand information from you. Bibi Harnam Kaur replied. Why won't I tell you what happened on that fateful day at Puncha Sahib? I remember the whole incident as if it occurred yesterday. I was one of those people who were sitting on the railway tracks to stop the train. I was sitting just behind my martyr husband. I have been getting the urge for a long time, to tell the true story of Puncha Sahib incident, but no one took the effort to write what I had to tell. I am glad to hear that you came specially to hear about this incident, and would be writing the story as I tell you. Gyani Bhajan Singh asked. How did this whole incident occur? Please tell me in detail. Assume that I don't know anything, and you are telling a new person this incident. Bibi Harnam Kaur replied. This was the time of Guru Ka Bagh Morcha. Police had arrested the Singhs, and the trains carrying these arrested Singhs of the Morcha, were being taken to the Attak and Kaimalpur jails. 2 trains had passed Puncha Sahib. My Shahid husband approached the station master, who was a very kind Hindu gentleman, and asked him why he was not informing the Sangat of the arrival of the trains, carrying the Sikh prisoners. My husband told him that the Sangat wanted to serve the Sikh prisoners. At that time my husband was the member of the managing committee of Sri Puncha Sahib, and he served in the capacity of the treasurer. Prior to that, he served as the general secretary of the committee. Anyway, one day, the Hindu station master informed my husband, that next day at 8 a.m., the train was scheduled to arrive at the Puncha Sahib railway station. As soon as the Sangat heard of this, they started preparing langar for the Sikh prisoners. After the completion of the morning congregation, an ardas was performed as follows. O true king, we have prepared food for your Gursikhs. Please fulfill our wish of feeding langar to our Gursikh brothers, and grant us the boon that we come back to the Gurdwara Sahib only after serving langar. After the ardas prayer, when we arrived at the station, we were informed by the station master, that as per orders from the top, the train will not stop at the station. The Sangat was at once overwhelmed by sadness and anger. They got together and decided through a Gurmata, that langar would be served to the Sangat at any cost, and that they would not let the train proceed further without this. After this decision, the despondence that the Sangat was in, at once disappeared. Gyani Bhajan Singh asked, what was the total number of Sangat? Bibi Har Namkor. It must have been about 300. Gyani Bhajan Singh. Then what happened? Bibi Har Namkor replied. When the train arrived, all the Sangat sat on the railway tracks with their legs crossed and started doing pot. Some men sat by the signal. Gyani Bhajan Singh asked. Did anyone flee after seeing the train arriving? Bibi Har Namkor. There was no question of fleeing. Everyone had decided unanimously. At that time, those present there did not have any fear of death. Motivating lectures had motivated everyone to die for this noble cause. Gyani Bhajan Singh. Then what happened? Bibi Har Namkor replied. The train arrived, it whistled but no one got up. At the front of everyone, my Shahid husband Sardar Pratap Singh Ji was sitting. Along his side was Sardar Karam Singh. The train hit my husband, and crushed him and Sardar Karam Singh. Many were thrown off the track by the bumper of the train. My husband and Sardar Karam Singh got Shahid there, and 6 others who had been crushed under the train, did not die, but had their legs and arms severed. I too suffered massive wounds and stayed in the hospital for many months. Gyani Bhajan Singh. Did Sardar Pratap Singh get Shahid right at the spot, or later? Please tell me everything. Bibi Har Namkor. Shahidi did not occur right on the spot. When the train stopped, people rushed to see the Singhs crushed under the train. My Shahid husband, who was very seriously injured at that time, said, first go and serve langar to the Gursikh prisoners, then come for our care. If you take us out of from under the train, the driver would take the train away, and we will not be able to serve langar to our brothers. After serving langar to the prisoners, then my husband was taken out. Bhai Karam Singh left his body within a few hours, but my husband gave his life at Amritvala, the next day. Gyani Bhajan Singh then asked, please tell us something about the time between when he got crushed under the train, until he died the next day. Bibi Har Namkor said, when I tried to go near him, after he got severely injured, he said, if you are my wife, then don't come to me crying, rather be happy because I have passed my test of Gursikhi. His jaw was severely injured and had been ripped apart from one side. His forehead had a very severe and deep cut. He himself kept thanking Waheguru, that he was able to fulfill his vow of serving langar to Gursikh brothers. Gyani Bhajan Singh. Please tell me some incident of his life. How old was he? Bibi Har Namkor. At the time of Shahidi, his age was about 24 or 25. We had been married for about 4 years. He was serving in the military back then, but had to leave his job for wearing a black turban. We came to Rawalpindi and started living there. He was in the forefront when the Jathar went to free the Puncha Sahib Gurdwara Sahib. After relinquishing Mahant control from the Gurdwara Sahib, my husband was appointed the first manager secretary of the Gurdwara Sahib. He kept working without any pay or salary. At that time, we got by selling our possessions. We did not have any money with us, but my husband did not care about these things. When he attained martyrdom, at that time too he was working in the management. Before Shahidi, we had a son who died when he was 2 years old. At his death, my husband gave proof of obeying the will of Waheguru, by accepting the will of Waheguru. He did not cry at all, and not only that, but he called a band group and played the band in front of the procession, as my son's dead body was taken for cremation. I gave birth to our second child, few months after the Shahidi of my husband. That child is our only daughter, Joginder Kaur. She was standing by us. Gyani Bhajan Singh. Can you mention any other significant incident related to this great incident of Puncha Sahib? Bibi Harnam Kaur. The driver of the train was an Aryan Muslim from Gujarat city of Pakistan. I don't remember his name. The government had filed a case against him, and he was investigated by a retired judge, as to why he stopped the train despite orders not to do so. That driver gave a statement in front of that tribunal, and this statement is of great historical significance. His statement was as follows. I had been given orders to not stop the train at any cost. As per the orders, I did not stop the train and it was moving at full speed. When the train hit Shahid Pratap Singh, I felt as if it had hit a huge mountain. I fell down and my hand got lifted from the speeder, and the train stopped. After investigating the engine, it was found that the brake had not been applied. I felt that some unseen, hidden power stopped the train. This driver was subsequently fired from his position. His statement proves that Satguruji himself stopped the train. End of interview. Mahant Narain Das of Nankana Sahib, the birthplace of Guru Nanak, was a debauch and a drunkard. He was pampered by the Britishers no less. In February 1921, 130 Sikh protesters who went to the Gurudwara to oust him from the sacred precincts, were attacked with swords and spears by the mobs of the Mahant, and massacred. The Sikhs were chanting the sacred hymns when the attack started. Bullets were mercilessly rained on them from the roof of an adjoining building. Their dead and dismembered bodies were sprinkled with kerosene and burnt on the premises. The leader of the Jatha, Sardar Lakshman Singh, was tied to the trunk of a tree and lynched, and then burnt alive. The tragic happening sent a wave of horror throughout the country. The government was alarmed. The charge of the Gurudwara was promptly handed over to a committee of the Sikhs. In 1923, the Akalis decided to take over the Gurdwara at Jado, in the Nabha state. The erstwhile Maharaja of Nabha, Rapudaman Singh, had been sympathetic to the Akali and the Indian nationalist cause, but was deposed by the British government. When the SGPC launched an agitation, its leaders and members were arrested on the charge of sedition. Subsequently, several marches were organized in support of the agitation in 1924. The protesters were arrested, beaten, and shot by the police at various instances. After a prolonged struggle lasting several months, the authorities relented, and enacted the Gurdwara Act of 1925, to hand over the control and management of all Sikh shrines to the SGPC. Not all Sikhs subscribed to nonviolent tactics in their struggle to liberate Punjab from colonial control. A decade earlier, emigrant Sikhs from North America and Southeast Asia, returned to Punjab to organize a military uprising against British rule. However, the plot was unveiled by British spies who infiltrated the inner circles of their revolutionary organization, the Ghadar Party, triggering a wave of arrests. In total, 145 revolutionaries were executed, and hundreds more were sentenced to various terms of imprisonment. Most of the convicts were transferred to Hazaribagh prison, where they were made victims of police torture and maltreatment. In 1918, several Sikh prisoners belonging to the Ghadar Party escaped from Hazaribagh prison by scaling its wall. But they were soon apprehended by the police and given severe punishment. Birendir Singh, who was lodged in Hazaribagh jail, gives a graphical description of the clash that took place between the police officers and the Sikhs in his autobiographical letters. Quote, excited with their courage and heroism, the prisoners jumped down from the top of the wall in hot haste, and all the 5 or 6 who did so, received very severe injuries on their feet. Some of them received such severe injuries that it was impossible for them to run. Others came down the wall a little cautiously. Bhai Inder Singh was the first to land safely on the ground. He had just landed, when 4 armed guards surrounded him and caught him. The wounded Sikhs could not bear the sight of arrest and beating of Inder Singh. One of them, Bhai Lal Singh of Narangwal, finding his comrade in trouble, stood up on his wounded and bleeding feet, and snatching a baton from a police guard, hit everyone right and left. Although Sunder Singh's feet were wounded, he came out like lightning, and wresting a baton with a spear end from one of the policemen, he hit them right and left, and brought to the ground 6 of them. Others ran for their life. They then begged Sunder Singh to surrender peacefully on the condition that he and his companions would not be beaten or maltreated. As soon as he surrendered, he was beaten to pulp. Yet Sunder Singh did not take the beating without retaliating with his hands and wounded feet. Everyone was stunned by his courage and unconquerable spirit. Then they searched the field and found the other runaway prisoners who were hiding close by. The cowards pounced on these helpless wounded lions, and tortured them with vengeance. Although all the 5 freedom fighters were half dead and made unconscious by beating, not one of them begged for mercy, and not one of them uttered a cry of pain. No one dared to come near them as long as Sunder Singh had the baton in his hands. There is some special quality in this land of 5 rivers, which makes the sons of this soil so fearless, that they mock at death in the face of greatest suffering and pain. They would never behave like cowards. When they were beaten so much that they became half dead, they were taken to the prison and locked in dark cells. 4 days together, they were neither given a drop of water, nor any medicine, nor were their wounds bandaged. Even unwanted dogs are never treated that way. It was the cold season, and those merciless tyrants neither gave them a cot, nor even a blanket to cover their body. When we came to know of this inhuman cruelty, our blood began to boil in anger and resentment, but we were utterly helpless. We had nothing to offer them except silent prayer, and the hope that God would help them to face the terrible ordeal they were facing. Everyone had turned against them, the doctors and compounders were strictly ordered not to go near them. Everyone was after their life. They struggled for survival with great willpower. Without a morsel of food, and without a drop of water, they were left to starve and die of thirst. As a result of the ill treatment accorded to the runaway prisoners, Vadhavaram and the superintendent were both degraded and shunted out of the place. Although the runaway prisoners were further punished by 2 years' increase in their prison's term, they taught these 2 cruel officers a good lesson. 3 of them have not been arrested so far. They are, Sucha Singh, Tejas Singh, and Buddha Singh. 7 others had already been brought to the prison, wounded, and badly injured. 8 others surrendered after a month and a half, after showing the courage of daredevils. The adventures of these runaway prisoners form a thrilling tale. Bareheaded and without even a shirt, the only thing they had were 2 staffs picked up from the cremation ground. They crossed the Sun River, even though half of them did not know how to swim. Even the Inquiry Commission was surprised at this feat. When once surrounded by hundreds of villagers, they broke their way through them with only 2 large sticks, and made good their escape into the forests. When they were extremely thirsty, they prayed for water. Immediately after the prayer, they heard frogs croaking at a distance and found some water at the place. When others slept, one of them kept guard at night. A wild bear once came near them, and finding one Sikh, he came with a companion bear to fight him. When the bear returned, 2 Sikhs were awake. The bear went away, and now 4 of them came. Finding 4 Sikhs awake, then 8 of them came. Finding 8 Sikhs were ready to fight them, they went away and never came back. 4 days they wandered in the forest without a morsel of food. 2 of them reached Banaras. They split themselves into 3 small groups, which added to their difficulties. Had they moved together, no one would have dared to face them. The police announced by the beat of the drum that they were dacoits, and thousands of people were sent after them to capture them. Armed with lathis, daggers, swords, spears, thousands of people surrounded these 3 unarmed, naked, starving Sikhs, Ganda Singh Nihang of Kapadkari, Inder Singh of Sheikh Dolat, and Arjan Singh of Jagrone. And yet they did not surrender without giving a tough fight to the police and the crowd. The other group of three, namely Bhai Dal Singh of Dudake, Bhai Gujar Singh Buckna, and Bhai Sajan Singh Narangwal, were similarly surrounded by a large armed police force and an angry crowd, who was told that they were dacoits. They snatched the arms and the lathis from the policemen, and fought for hours, beating everyone who came near them to pulp. The whole of Bihar and UP resounded with the stories of courage of these 6 Sikhs. At last an armed crowd of thousands closed upon them, and overpowered these brave patriots, who had not taken a morsel of food for weeks. They fought with fiery determination. After receiving many sword cuts, wounds from indiscriminate lathi charges, bleeding from head to foot, they fell unconscious on the ground. The valor and courage Bhai Gujar Singh showed at this moment, cannot be expressed in words. Daggers and swords had caused deep injuries on the whole of his body, and yet he fought till he became unconscious. Bhai Sajan Singh Narangwal writes, "Hail Guru Gobind Singh, and hail to the Guru Panth." The Singhs refused to be arrested without putting up a fight. In the conflict, Gujar Singh Buckna's jaw was ripped apart, and his knee was broken in 2 pieces. Bhai Inder Singh's knee was dislocated. We received many wounds. My arm had a deep cut. They were lifted on cots while I was dragged by ropes to Sasram hospital. Even while these Sikhs were lying unconscious and half dead on the ground, no one came near them for fear that they might get up suddenly, and kill the first man they got hold of. They were brought in this precarious condition to the prison, and to everyone's surprise their wounds healed soon enough. Bhai Natha Singh Dun, and Hari Singh of Kakad, were arrested at Banaras and brought to the prison. A judicial inquiry was held, and all the runaway prisoners were convicted of breaking the jail. Although all the runaway prisoners were punished by the extension of their term of imprisonment by 2 years, Vadhavaram's treatment of the prisoners was condemned by the judges, and he was downgraded and severely censured. The Inspector General, Bawajiwan Singh, was also censured. The government took a serious note of his inability to handle the prisoners properly, by which he felt extremely humiliated. He avenged this humiliation by not giving either freedom or reduction of prison terms, which was sanctioned by the government for all political prisoners. One day Bhai Sajan Singh, who was lodged in the adjacent cell, started reciting prayer, after taking his morning bath. Sadhu Radha Singh, who was on duty as sentry, came and informed me that Bhai Sajan Singh's finger had been cut, and while he was reciting the prayer, the finger was bleeding. Sadhu Radha Singh was wonder-struck at what he saw. Bhai Sajan Singh was quite unconscious of his bleeding finger, and his mind was concentrated in the blissful thoughts of the prayer. "Wonderful is the spiritual poise and achievement of the Sikhs," cried Sadhu Radha Singh. I interrupted Bhai Sajan Singh's recitation at a point where he had just completed one hymn, and asked him, "Well brother, what is the matter? How did it happen?" "Oh, it is nothing," he replied, and continued the recitation. Sadhu Radha Singh brought to me the fingertip that had been cut away from his hand, to show me how serious the matter was. I asked him to attach the finger piece to his hand. When he tried to do so, Sajan Singh refused, saying, "Such is the will of God. You need not worry about it any more. It has remained cut off for a long time." Thus he disobeyed what I asked him to do. Over and above this, he applied oil to the cut end of the finger instead of keeping it clean with water till some medicine was applied. First his hand, and then his arm became septic. The swelling spread all over his arm, and the whole arm became an inflated balloon. The matter was at once reported to the hospital. A new superintendent had just joined the office. He was an expert surgeon from the Indian Medical Service. His name was Dr. Frederick. He also performed the duties of a medical officer. He was known to be a very efficient physician and surgeon. As soon as he examined Bhai Sajan Singh, he ordered that he should be taken to the hospital. I particularly requested him to make a special effort to treat Bhai Sajan Singh. Some of us even agreed to accompany Sajan Singh to nurse him, but Dr. Frederick assured us that he would take good care of Bhai Sajan Singh. He did not even wait to inquire how the finger was cut, because he thought that the inquiry might obstruct or delay immediate treatment that was necessary. In the evening, the assistant surgeon came and informed me that the condition of Bhai Sajan Singh's arm had worsened. There was a danger of the infection spreading to the rest of his body. Another surgeon had been invited from the civil hospital for consultation. The whole medical board of expert surgeons had decided that the arm should be amputated. As there was no other way out, the amputation of the arm was likely to take place the next morning. I sent this sad news to all the comrades. It was decided that early the next morning, everyone would recite Japji 5 times, and pray for Bhai Sajan Singh, which everyone did. After I completed the recitation of Japji 5 times next morning, I felt an inner urge to say the congregational prayer, the Ardasa. It was a silent Ardasa which was performed without informing anyone. I prayed in the Ardasa that Bhai Sajan Singh's arm may not be amputated, and if he was cured, he would offer Kara Prasad at the Golden Temple, as soon as he was released. This was the first time in my life that I performed such an Ardasa. I did it unconsciously. I did not have it in mind even a few minutes earlier. And this is what happened on the other side in the hospital. The physicians, the saints of God, have gathered together. The treatment is hopeful and effective. Because God Himself is a witness to the healing. Lo, the patient is rid of all sins, maladies, and sorrows. Guru Arjan, Funye. The doctors were now around Sajan Singh, who lay absorbed in silent prayer, ready for amputating his arm. Dr. Frederick examined the arm, and thinking that Bhai Sajan Singh was asleep, he woke him up saying, "Wake up, we have to administer chloroform to you." "Why?" asked Sajan Singh. "Because your arm has to be amputated," replied the surgeon. "It is not necessary to keep me under chloroform. You can amputate the arm without it. You will find that I will not move nor complain, in the least, of pain." "Go ahead," said Sajan Singh. The surgeon was taken aback at the courage and endurance powers of this 20-year-old young man. He wondered what these Sikhs were made of. Even at such a young age they could look at suffering and pain with such stoic indifference. For a moment he hesitated to amputate the arm. An idea flashed across his mind. He now decided to try some minor operation by which he could take out the pus, out of the abscesses. Some unknown power impelled him to save his arm. It did not strike him before. But now he made an effort to save the arm. As soon as the abscesses were cleared of the pus, the swelling subsided and the laceration began to heal. The joy of the surgeon, Dr. Frederick, knew no bounds. He had given up hope of saving Sajan Singh's arm, but now he felt a miracle had worked. He personally came to dress the wounds. He ordered his assistants to take extraordinary care in nursing his wounds. Happy at the success of his operation, he came to me and said, "Well, Randir Singh, your companion is perfectly all right now. Do not worry about him. His arm has not been amputated. It is completely healed up." I said, "You have been very kind and generous, and your labors have borne fruit." The superintendent said, No, I did nothing. It was a miracle. I was ready with my instruments to amputate the arm, and just as I was about to do so, something checked me. In a flash came the idea to me that I should try to save his arm, and what struck me suddenly had not occurred to me before. My mind suddenly changed when the young man asked me to perform the operation without the chloroform. The minor operation was performed without the chloroform, and he did not stir in pain, even once. Even if I had amputated his arm, he would not have felt the pain. It appears he was under the trance of some spiritual inspiration. After giving expression to his feelings in English, he went away. I sat in thanksgiving prayer. Bhai Sajan Singh Narangwal writes, "Satis are not those that burn themselves on the husband's funeral pyre, satis are they, O Nanak, who die of the pangs of separation. They are also known as sati, who abide in modesty and contentment. They serve their Lord, and rise in the early hours to contemplate him. Guru Granth Sahib, page 787, Thank you, O merciful Guru Gobind and Nanak, for overlooking my sins. Bhai Sahib made offerings for the first time, and the Sangat supported me by reciting prayers. The fear of God and the Guru welled up inside me, and dispelled all of my fears. When the Satguru bestowed his grace upon me, my mind became as still as a mountain. Unyielding in opinion, the doctors were convinced that my life could only be saved if my arm was amputated. Having forgotten God, the voice of their egos were speaking. They laid me down on a bed and fetched their medical weapons. I saw that no one was listening, so I stopped listening too. I got ready and surrendered myself to the Guru. I had nothing to worry about, since I no longer existed, it was all up to the brave Guru now. I kept looking down at my arm from time to time. They did not amputate my arm, but cut it open to perform a minor operation. Thanks to the Guru's Sangat, they changed their decision. My arm was feeling better now. The great Guru Gobind Singh has been merciful to me. Unquote. Dr. Frederick performed his duties very conscientiously, and inspired confidence and efficiency in his staff. I have never seen so conscientious a British officer. He himself bandaged the arm of Sajan Singh every day. He ordered one or the other assistant surgeon to be always present to watch Sajan Singh. They had to remain with him for 2 hours by turn. Even at night his assistants had to be present near the patient. He worked even on Sundays, and every night he came to see Sajan Singh at least once. We expressed our grateful thanks to him for his sympathies in so many words. End of excerpt. Government and control of Banda Singh Bahadur. In due course, Lahore was also threatened, but the combined force of the Mughal and Afghan armies forced them to retreat. The army of Islam returned victorious to Lahore. Some of its soldiers were vile and mean enough to commit shameful acts upon the Hindus of the city. Karfi Khan, another contemporary historian, writes, the Khatris of the Punjab were colluding with Banda, and the Jats were supporting him. The majority of Banda's followers were foot soldiers. They did not hesitate to die in battle. Their spirit of sacrifice, and their achievement through it, was attributed by the common people to magic and sorcery. Muhammad Shafi writes, after the conquest of Sirhind, Banda ordered that both Hindus and Muslims who became enrolled as Sikhs should take their meals together, to obviate the distinction of the lowly and the well-born. Consequently a pauper was made equal to a prince. The administrators appointed by him belonged to lowly positions, including that of a sweeper or a cobbler. Eventually, Banda was besieged in the fort of Gurdaspur. Muhammad Qasim was an eyewitness to the sorties of the besieged. The Mughal commanders were so struck with fear, that they prayed that Banda should take to flight, so that their prestige was saved without risking their lives. The siege continued. The reinforcements brought by Qamar ud-Din were therefore very welcome. Also, as the Sikhs were not strict observers of caste, they slaughtered oxen and other animals, and not having any firewood, ate the flesh raw. Many died of dysentery and privation. When all the grass was gone, they gathered leaves from trees. When these were consumed, they stripped the bark and broke off the small shoots, dried them, ground them and used them instead of flour, thus keeping the body and soul together. They also collected the bones of animals and used them in the same way. Mohammed Qasim asserts that they saw a few of them cutting flesh from their own thighs, roasting it, and eating it. In spite of all this, the infernal Sikh chief and his men, writes Kamwar Khan, withstood all the military force that the great Mughal Empire could muster against them for 8 long months. After a further siege of over 2 months, which made Banda's position utterly hopeless, he offered to surrender on the promise of safety. About 200 men came out with him and they were placed under custody. Zakaria Khan escorted the prisoners to Delhi, where they were executed. Banda Bahadur and his 5-year-old son were the last to be executed after much torture on June 20, 1716. Mirza Muhammad. The non-Sikh writers of the early 18th century took much greater notice of Banda Singh Bahadur than that of Guru Gobind Singh. This may safely be attributed to the political activities of Banda Singh and his success in holding power for some time. When Wazir Khan, the governor of Sirhind, sent commanders with troops against the Khalsa in the Jalandhar region, his commanders were defeated. The Khalsa were hostile to Wazir Khan, because he had killed the young sons of their guru. Disorders spread in his territories and he was obliged to stay at Sirhind. A later report refers to the defeat and death of Wazir Khan on May 24, 1710. The Khalsa established their authority in Sirhind, and forbade the killing of animals. Muhammad Qasim, the earliest writer to give detail of Banda Singh's activities, mentions Wazir Khan's minister, Sach Anand, as a special target of the Sikhs, because of his earlier acts of cruelty to the young sons of Guru Gobind Singh. The city of Sirhind was destroyed. Some people were compelled to accept the Sikh faith. None was allowed to retain arms, horses, and other goods of chiefship. Baz Singh was appointed as the new governor of Sirhind. All territory from the river Sutlej up to Karnal passed under the continued for 3 months or 4 months, during which time more reinforcements were sent. The enclosure containing the Sikhs was immediately surrounded and blockaded, and the besiegers kept so watchful a guard, that not a blade of grass, nor a grain of corn, could find its way in. Occasionally, Abdus Samad Khan, and his son Zakariya Khan, at the head of several thousand troopers of their own nation and the forces of their allies, attempted to storm the Sikh position, but their attempts were defeated by comparatively a handful of Sikhs, who showed the greatest activity in their defense. Muhammad Qasim, who was at this time present in these operations, writes, "The brave and daring deeds of the infernal Sikhs were wonderful. Twice or thrice every day, some 40 or 50 of the black-faced Sikhs came out of their enclosure to gather grass for their cattle, and when the combined forces of the imperialists went to oppose them, they made an end of the Mughals with their arrows, muskets and small swords, and disappeared. Such was the terror of the Sikhs and the fear of the sorceries of the Sikh chief, that the commanders of this army prayed that God might so ordain things, that Banda Singh should seek his safety in his flight from the fortress." Unquote. Abdus Samad Khan soon perceived that no less than 30,000 men would be required to prevent escape of the besieged. An eyewitness to some of the executions writes, "There was no sign of humility and submission on the faces of the Sikhs. Most of them kept singing and reciting melodious verses. They attributed their defeat to fate, and had no fear of death. In a week's time all the Sikhs were beheaded in batches of 100. Banda himself was hacked to death along with his young son and 20 prominent devoted Sikhs." Karfi Khan adds, "During the executions, the mother of one youth pleaded his innocence, and the emperor ordered his release. But her son cried out that she was telling a lie, and that he should be executed so that he may join his companions." The evidence of non-Sikh sources on the resurgence of the Khalsa, like their evidence on Banda Singh Bahadur, is extremely valuable. After Banda Singh, the persecution of Sikhs continued. Bhai Kesar Singh Chibber, a contemporary historian, mentions the martyrdom of the head caretaker of the Hari Mandar Sahib, Bhai Mani Singh, who was of Kamboj lineage, and was martyred by being cut limb from limb in Lahore. According to Thomas Khan, the new governor, Mir Manu, made special preparations to suppress the Sikhs, and offered incentives to those who might join his plan of suppression and persecution. This piece of evidence carries the implication that the Sikhs had become a serious menace